So first and foremost, as Gwen mentioned, Integra Gold was our first company that we took from about a 15 million market cap in 2012 to a sale to El Dorado for about 600 million in 2017, and kind of made our way through some pretty treacherous times during one of the worst bear markets on record. And it's one of, as you can see on the slide there, one of only 16 projects that were acquired back in 2012 that actually have made it into production. So not only do you want to back a good management team, but you also want to make sure it's a team that can make a project sort of shovel ready, so to speak. And that is the team that you see there. It's the same team from Integra Gold. The only thing that's different is we've really beefed up the board of directors, as you can see there, from our first go around with Integra Gold. Another nice change from that is that it's not a mistake where so there's a zero where it says warrants, and we learned the hard way with our first project. I think we had close to 500 million shares by the time it was all said and done and when we got bought, but that was a product of not having a strong reputation at that point in time and a terrible market. So we've been able to keep it nice and tight this time around. About 10 analysts cover the story. Price targets range from right around $6 to $10, probably averages around $7.50 or so there. So there's lots of sort of third-party opinions and thoughts on the project as well. And we're about 65% institutionally held, and Coeur Mining is a strategic investor in the project as well. Jurisdiction, always important. Idaho comes in number 9 or number 10 according to the Fraser Institute. So, and the fellow that you see there on the horse, he's not an actor or a model or anything like that. That's Butch Otter, the former 3-term governor in Idaho. We're his only precious metal seat that he took there, and I think if you ask him, one of the main things he'll tell you is that we have the best path to permitting where we are in Idaho, and we have excellent relations with the government down there as well. So it's an interesting, when you look at Integra, it's easy to think that we're just purely a development story, and you'd be right if that was your opinion on us, but there's certainly a lot more to that story. We're going to be actually updating our PEA, which we did a few years ago, which talks about 10 years of mine life at about 125,000 ounces per year. We used the $1,350 gold price and $1,690 silver price as the input for that study, and gave us an after-tax IRR of 43%. So, at $1,800 gold, obviously that's a much higher number, and it was a pretty strong project, but it was only built on about half of our ounces. We only used about 1.8 million of our 4.4 to build that, and the reason was that we didn't have enough metallurgy done on the sulfide material yet to really be able to confidently put that into a study. So with the upcoming pre-fees, that's going to change. The scale of the projects is going to change substantially. So, and I can't really talk too much about that, unfortunately, because it could be out as early as next week. So we're expecting that study to come out in the next few weeks with a much bigger sort of project. So this is the timeline. As I mentioned, a resource estimate will be coming out with that as well. But what really this allows us to do once pre-fees comes out is submit our plan of operations to the BLM, which sort of officially kicks off the permitting process. We've been doing baseline studies for about the last year now. We expect a record of decision sort of mid to late 2024. So really in mining terms, that's not all that far away. So I think, when you look at a buying opportunity, a re-rate on paper, there should be a re-rate on paper at least, and if this gold market continues, perhaps the market will give us more credit for the upcoming pre-feasibility with the bigger production profile that's coming out soon. But at the very least, at some point in time, we should get credit for that, whether it's now or not, I don't know for sure. It's interesting to see the gold price kind of do what it's doing, but there's still not a ton of volume sort of in at least the names that I own. So interesting times to say the least. But I think we all sort of believe that the justification for a better gold price is here and will continue to stay strong. So the exploration side of the story, that's where things get pretty exciting for us. This is just a bit of an overview of the project and kind of the main deposits that we have there. The black sheep that you see up in the sort of top left of that yellow sort of outline there, that's a 30 square kilometer 30 square kilometer exploration is sort of greenfield sort of aspect for us. We think it's the vent margin extension from Delamar, which is an epithermal deposit that extends up through that area. So when we've barely scratched the surface on about 8 targets that we've got there, we got a couple holes into 2 of them. We were able to hit the first time around. So lots of room for growth on this in terms of exploration as well. About 3 weeks ago, we put out some drill results from Sullivan Gulch, which is right by Delamar. This is the low-grade bulk tonnage, and it was a pretty outstanding hit, over 100 meters of about 3.3 gram per ton. So we're able to easily add ounces. That's why next year we'll already be looking to do a pre-feas update. Unfortunately, some of these recent holes won't make it into the study that's coming out, but it's onward and upward at Sullivan Gulch in terms of adding low-grade ounces. Florida Mountains, where we've spent a lot of our time, I mean, if you kind of go back and you think back to when we started, we essentially were able to, without even putting a drill in the ground, come out with an inferred resource of close to 2 million ounces, just based on looking at all Kinross's old data and reprocessing the core and things like that. So it made sense for us the first few years to really focus on beefing up that low-grade resource, which is now 4.4 million ounces gold equivalent with 3.9 in M&I. But the focus is really largely started to shift into the high grade, which I'll talk about in a minute. But when you look at that circle there, and actually does this one have the pointer on it?
No, that one.
This one has the laser on it? Okay. Okay. So hopefully everyone can sort of see what I'm pointing at. I don't know if I can, but at any rate, the light colored area at Florida Mountain represents about 1.1 million ounces of that resource. This whole area to the side there is about the same size, and we've only got 2 holes into that, and it shows up extremely well on the soil geochem. And then to the west of that, we also have additional targets from IP anomalies that we haven't even touched on yet. So we think there's a great opportunity to expand the low-grade resource at Florida Mountain, as well at Sullivan Gulch and Delamar too. But where things to me get really exciting with our story is the high grade. So historically, 1860s to around 1910, this was a high grade with pretty primitive mining methods, and they were averaging 30 gram per ton gold using a 15 gram cutoff. So some serious high grade. So as I mentioned, we kind of pivoted towards that in the last few years, and now we've got just a little bit over 100 drill intersects into these 3 main vein structures below the low grade resource at Florida Mountain that are at least 4 gram per ton or better. So internally, we've done our own studies. We think there's somewhere between 750,000 ounces and 1.5 million ounces, somewhere in that range under there. So we're waiting on the BLM to give us the go-ahead to put an adit into the side of Florida Mountain so we can get underground and do some close-space drilling to get that into a resource category, hopefully within 18 to 24 months once we get the go-ahead. You can imagine what that would do to the economics of the project. Has a very significant impact on that project. So we're pretty excited about that. And one of the best parts is typically when you kind of submit your plan of operations for permitting and you go and hit that dreaded Lassonde curve where you're just in developing. So we'll be avoiding that by potentially be drilling into this high grade area that we've already got over 100 hits into from underground, but also exploring and continuing to add ounces in terms of low grade and high grade to the story at the same time. So it's a nice option to have that development, side of things. I think the story's a good investment from just the perspective of what we've got in terms of a mine plan and what we'll be beefing that up with the PFS that's coming out shortly. That just gives you a bit of a look at the pit constraint at Florida Mountain and then some of those high-grade hits that we've hit right below that low-grade resource. A little bit more there. Yeah, so some excellent grade there. We're pretty excited about that. And I guess the last thing I'll leave you with is, even if, this is a short-lived, run in gold, in which we really seem to need to be able to go to 2,000 or better to get most of the generalist investors back into the sector, even though it's an excellent price for the producers sort of at these levels. It's even if gold was to kind of be stagnant or stick around that $1,700 to $1,800 mark for the next year or two, when you look at, Gwen kind of touched on it a little bit, talking about the M&A, and we've seen some things happen. So we had National Bank put a study together for us about a year or two ago, and we wanted to know sort of how many, globally, how many gold and silver assets there were out there. And then we wanted to apply some filters to that to try and narrow it down to see what the stronger sort of companies were. And so, you take out ones without a recent study, ones with less than 50% precious metal production, ones with less than 10 years of mine life, less than 100,000 ounce a year producers, and jurisdiction obviously is key too, but one of the key criteria was, can you build your project for less than $500 million? And you can see that list is a fairly short list there, and in terms of capital intensity, Integra shows up quite well on that list. And then, as you can see on number 3, was just acquired recently there. So I think even if we were to be kind of stuck in this $1,800 range for a while, we're still an attractive target for producers as well. So that's always something that's nice to see when you're looking to invest in a company. And with that, thank you for your time, and look forward to catching up with you at the booth. Thank you.